The call came at 7:03 p.m. on a Tuesday, slicing through the quiet, curated perfection of our Pacific Heights dining room. I was finalizing a quarterly report for my firm. The blue light of my laptop a cold island in the warm pool of the baccarat chandelier's glow. Liam was across from me, swirling a glass of Cabernet, pretending to read a legal brief. The silence between us wasn't hostile, just efficient, the kind that settles after 8 years of marriage when conversations about asset allocations and whose turn it is to host his partners for dinner replace the whispers about dreams and stupid, breathless ideas. His phone buzzed, a harsh vibration on the polished mahogany. He glanced at the screen, and his face, usually a masterpiece of composed, waspish neutrality, that did something strange. It tightened, then drained of color, not with fear, I thought later, reconstructing the moment with forensic clarity, with the startled guilt of a man whose alibi has just been called. Mother? He answered, his voice assuming a tone of sonorous concern I knew well. It was the voice he used for grieving clients and judge-friendly jurors. A performance. I muted my laptop, watching. A high, reedy torrent of words spilled from the receiver. I caught only fragments. Zurich, Dr. Reinhardt. Immediately. The most advanced. No options here. Liam's knuckles were white around his phone. Yes, of course. I understand. Try to stay calm. I'll handle everything. He listened for another minute. His eyes closed. I'll be on the first flight I can get. Just rest. Mother. He ended the call and let his hand fall to the table with a soft thud. He looked at me, and for a fleeting second, I saw a calculation behind his eyes, a rapid assessment of how to sell this. That was Eleanor, he said, stating the obvious. His mother, a woman who considered my career in venture capital a charming little hobby, and my bloodline, successful Silicon Valley entrepreneurs on both sides. Regrettably nouveau. She's in Switzerland. She's been diagnosed. Diagnosed with what? I asked, my professional instincts snapping to attention. Problems were for solving. What do the doctors say? It's a rare carcinoma. Aggressive. Very aggressive. He ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, a gesture meant to convey distress. It looked practiced. Her doctor in New York referred her to a specialist in Zurich, a Dr. Reinhardt. He's the leading expert. She flew out for consultations, and the results just came back. It's bad. Raven. She needs to start a proprietary treatment protocol there immediately. It's not available stateside. A cold trickle of concern. Genuine concern. Cut through my usual armor of resistance against anything involving Eleanor Blackwell. Okay, I said, closing my laptop. Okay, let's think. Do we need to get a second opinion? I can have my team find the top 3 oncologists specializing in rare carcinomas by morning. We can have her records sent to them virtually. There's no need to. No, he said, the word sharp. Final. He softened it with a weary sigh. No, Raven. Dr. Reinhardt is the second opinion, the third and fourth. 2. This is it, the only option. She needs to start right away. I studied him. My husband, Liam Blackwell, of the old money. Never talk about the money Blackwells. A rising star at his White Shoe law firm. Impeccable. Controlled. He was controlling now. The narrative. The pace. Something felt off. The urgency was real, but its shape was wrong. All right, I conceded. Switching tactics. Then we go. I'll clear my schedule. The Synapse Fund closes next week, but Chloe can handle the final sign-offs. I'll book us on the same flight. We'll get an apartment near the clinic. I can work remotely. You'll need support. Liam. Logistics. Dealing with the hospital admin, keeping your family updated, and you shouldn't be alone with this. It was a logical, practical, and wifely offer, a statement of solidarity, a declaration that despite Eleanor's lifelong campaign of subtle disparagement, I would be there for her in a crisis because she was his mother, and he was my husband, His reaction was volcanic. God, Raven, think. He exploded, shoving back from the table so violently his wine glass wobbled. He didn't steady it. He stared at me, and the look in his eyes wasn't grief or anxiety. It was pure, undiluted irritation. This isn't one of your boardroom strategies you can just bulldoze your way into. It's not a startup you can fix with a check and a new CEO. This is a medical crisis. My mother is facing a life-threatening illness. She needs quiet. She needs specialized care. She needs peace, not you hovering and trying to manage everything. Trying to fix everything with your damn checkbook. I recoiled as if slapped. Hovering? Manage? Liam, I'm offering to help. To be with you. You'd just be in the way. He snapped, his voice cracking with a frustration that seemed disproportionate, almost performative. You don't know the first thing about this kind of thing. Your version of help is throwing money at a problem until it goes away. This won't go away. And having you there, with your intensity, your constant need to be in control, it would stress her out more. It would stress me out. For once. Can't you just not? Don't be so damn needy. Just hold the fort here. Be useful where you actually can be. The word hung in the air between us. Toxic and absurd. Needy. He was flying to another continent, and I was being needy for wanting to stand beside him. A slow, cold anger began to thaw the initial shock. I am Raven Silva. I built a $250 million fund from scratch in a male-dominated field by being smarter, tougher, and more prepared than anyone else. I am not needy. I am necessary. So, let me get this straight. I said, my voice dangerously calm. The one I use before I eviscerate a founder's flawed projections. Your mother is critically ill with a rare disease in Switzerland. You, her only child, are rushing to her side, and your wife, wanting to accompany you to provide support, is being in the way and needy. Is that the situation, Liam? He had the grace to look slightly abashed, but it was quickly buried under a fresh wave of self-righteous urgency. You're twisting my words. I'm under immense stress. I have to pack. I have to get to SFO. He started pacing, avoiding my gaze. It's complicated. Raven, mother, and I will need to have difficult conversations. Practical ones. About her estate. Her wishes. It's private. Family stuff. Having you there, it would change the dynamic. She wouldn't be open. It wouldn't help her. Family stuff. I repeated flatly. After 8 years, I was still on the outside. The prenup his mother had insisted on. The one that protected the venerable Blackwell assets from my Silicon Valley volatility had never felt more like a physical barrier. Yes, he said, latching onto the excuse. It's just simpler this way. Cleaner. For her treatment. You running the show here. Keeping things normal. That's the best thing you can do. Really. He stopped pacing and finally looked at me. The anger was gone, replaced by a mask of weary, patronizing finality. The decision was made. By him. For me. I'll call you when I land, he said, moving towards the hallway. Already mentally gone. We'll talk every day. I'll keep you updated. He walked over and wrapped me in a brief, stiff hug. It felt like being embraced by a mannequin. There was no comfort in it, no shared fear, no intimacy. It was a procedural gesture, a box to check. Hug wife. Reassure her. Exit stage left. Take care of things. Raven. He murmured into my hair, his breath smelling of wine and deceit. And then he was gone. I heard the soft thud of a suitcase on the marble foyer, the click of the front door, the distant purr of the town car he'd summoned. The silence in the house expanded, thick and heavy. I stood alone in the dining room, surrounded by the trappings of a life that felt suddenly, profoundly fake. The gilded cage. Chloe called it once, half joking. I'd scoffed then. I wasn't caged. I had my own wings, my own kingdom. But as the silence pressed in, Liam's words echoed, needy, in the way, family stuff, a sharp, Professional suspicion cut through the personal hurt. The timing, the over-the-top rejection of my help, the strange, theatrical panic, the specificity of Zurich, not a general Europe, the haste, something was wrong, not with Eleanor's health, though that might be real, a convenient catalyst, but with Liam's story, the pieces didn't fit. I built my career on pattern recognition, on spotting the flaw in the logic, the hidden variable in the equation. And this equation stank. I walked to my study, the heels of my shoes echoing in the empty mansion. I didn't cry. I opened my laptop, the glow illuminating my face in the dark room. I opened a blank document. At the top, I typed Liam/Eleanor/Zurich discrepancies. Then I began to list them, coldly, methodically, my feelings locked away in a vault labeled pending further data, the call log, his reaction, the refusal, the hug, the odd phrasing, proprietary treatment protocol. The cold anger solidified into a core of ice. If this was a crisis, I would be the calm within it. If this was a game, I would learn the rules. And if, by some horrific, gut-churning chance, this was something else, something worse, I saved the document to a secure, encrypted drive. I would wait for his call. I would listen. I would be the supportive, fort-holding wife, and I would start digging, because in my world, the one Liam so dismissively called the boardroom, the biggest mistakes were always born of arrogance and incomplete information. He thought he'd left the needy, hovering wife behind. He'd left a predator alone with her suspicions, and I had a very long reach. The silence in the house after Liam left wasn't empty. It was pressurized, a vacuum waiting to implode. I worked. It was the only gear I knew how to engage. I dove into the synapse, closing with a ferocity that made my junior partners blanch. Scheduling calls for 6 a.m. and 10 p.m., my focus a laser beam. I was, as instructed, holding the fort, but the fortress I was fortifying was my own sanity. Brick by logical brick. Liam called, as promised, the next evening. The connection from Zurich was crisp, the background unnervingly quiet. No hospital hum, no PA announcements. "Hey," he said, his voice a study in weary concern. "Just landed a few hours ago. It's a lot to process. How is she?" I asked, my tone neutral, professional. I had my list of discrepancies open on a separate screen. Frightened, tired. The flight took it out of her. "We're at the clinic first thing tomorrow for the full battery of tests before the treatment protocol can begin." He sounded rehearsed. "Which clinic? What's the treatment called?" "I have a contact at the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology. They might have data, or know someone who does." A beat of silence, just a fraction too long. "It's a private institute, very discreet. Reinhardt's methods are proprietary." Raven, "It's not about peer-reviewed studies. It's about results. Mother's exhausted. I shouldn't have her medical details debated over the phone." "I'm not debating. Liam, I'm trying to understand, to help. The best help is to let the doctors do their work." He said, a sharp edge returning to his voice. "Look, I'm tired, jet-lagged. It's been a hell of a day. I'll know more tomorrow. I'll call you then. Send me the clinic's information. I'd like to send flowers. At least." Another pause. I'll have the concierge at the hotel arrange something. Don't worry about it. Just hold down things there. The quarterly property tax is due on the Napa house. Don't forget." He was directing me to pay a bill, while his mother was supposedly fighting for her life. The absurdity was a cold slap. "I won't forget," I said, my voice flat. "Good. Talk tomorrow." He ended the call. I stared at my phone. Hold down things. Pay the taxes. Don't be needy. The script was airtight and utterly hollow. Day 2 brought another call. Shorter. "Tests are ongoing. It's complicated. The medical terminology is a mile long. Reinhardt is optimistic, but cautious. Mother is resting." He offered no details. deflecting every specific question with a variation of "it's too technical" or "you wouldn't understand." His answers were generic enough to apply to any serious illness. When I pressed, asking about white cell counts or treatment durations, his irritation spiked. For God's sake, Raven, I'm not a doctor. I'm just relaying what I'm told. Can you please just trust me to handle this? Your constant interrogation isn't helping. It feels like you're auditing a tragedy. Auditing, the word choice was telling. From anyone else, it might have been an accusation of coldness. From Liam, in that moment, it sounded like fear. Fear of being audited, because the numbers wouldn't add up. Fine, I said, the ice in my voice so thick I almost surprised myself. Handle it. I didn't wait for his goodbye. I hung up. The action, small and petty, sent a jolt of electricity through the numbness. It was the first boundary I'd drawn. No, that night, sleep was a fugitive. My mind raced, connecting disparate points. The secrecy, the hostility, the lack of tangible detail. Zurich, a city for private banking, discreet clinics and lavish weddings. A cold, sick feeling began to pool in my stomach. A suspicion so vile I tried to shove down. It was insane, paranoia born of hurt and neglect. But I was a VC. I knew insanity sometimes wore a very sane mask. On the morning of the third day, no call came. By 2 p.m. San Francisco time, 11 p.m. in Zurich, I hadn't heard a word. No update on the critical treatment. Nothing. The silence was louder than all his dismissive words. Restless, angry, I did what any modern scorned woman does. I scrolled. Not his socials, that his were barren. Professional, a LinkedIn parody. I looked at the peripheries. His vapid cousin, Tiffany, whose life was a curated stream of ski trips and cocktail parties. Her Instagram was public. A scroll through her stories was usually an exercise in vacuous envy. And there it was, a 10-second video clip, shaky, shot on a phone. The backdrop was unmistakable. The stark, elegant wooden interior of the tiny chapel in Wengen. Liam had pointed it out to me from a train once, years ago, during a hiking trip. See that? Looks like something out of a fairy tale. One day, maybe that he'd said, squeezing my hand. We'd been married at City Hall. Eleanor had deemed a big wedding tacky given the circumstances of my family's wealth. The camera panned, and there he was, my husband, Liam Blackwell, in a tailored, peak lapel tuxedo I'd never seen before. His hair, perfectly styled, a smile on his face so wide, so unguarded. It was a physical blow. He was looking down, his expression one of theatrical adoration, at a woman, a young, willowy blonde in a sleek, expensive-looking column wedding dress. Not a hospital gown, a wedding dress. He was bending to kiss her. The caption, in Tiffany's bubbly font, screamed over the scene. OMG, OMG, OMG. Surprise of the century. Congrats to my cousin Liam and the beautiful Serafina. So sudden, so romantic. When you know, you know. Hashtag elopement, hashtag Swiss fairy tale, hashtag Blackwell wedding, hashtag love wins. The world didn't spin. It didn't go dark. It crystallized. Every shard of doubt, every moment of confusion, every cold, dismissive word snapped into a perfect, horrifying picture. The diagnosis, the urgency, the refusal, the secrecy, the family stuff. It wasn't about cancer. It was about a wedding to a woman named Serafina. A sound escaped me, not a sob, a laugh, a short, harsh, utterly mirthless bark that echoed in the sterile quiet of my home office. It was the sound of a dam breaking, of all the suspended disbelief giving way to the flood of a truth so ugly, so cliché. It was almost funny. Almost. He'd told me I'd be in the way. He wasn't wrong. A wife tends to complicate a wedding. My fingers, cold and steady, executed the moves. Screenshot. Screen recording. Save. archive in 3 separate, encrypted cloud locations. The emotional part of me was a distant, frozen statue. The operational part, the Raven Silva who gutted failing startups and built empires, was now fully in command. I tapped the contact for my closest friend, my first and sometimes only call, Chloe Morrison. She answered on the second ring. Raven, tell me you're finally taking a break. You sound like you haven't slept. He got married, I said, my voice flat, devoid of all inflection, a beat of stunned silence. What? Who? Liam? Raven, what are you talking about? His mother is fine. Or at least, she's well enough to attend her son's wedding. In Switzerland, to a blonde named Serafina. I heard the shuddering intake of breath on the other end of the line. I just saw the video on his cousin Tiffany's Instagram. 3 days. Chloe, it took him 3 days to marry someone else. Oh, my God. Chloe's voice was a whisper. Then it hardened into a blade. That fucking coward. That pathetic, spineless piece of shit. The cancer was a wedding plan? Are you sure? I'm looking at him in a tuxedo, kissing her. I'm sure. The clinical tone was starting to crack. A white-hot fury was beginning to melt the ice in my veins. He looked me in the eye. He told me I was needy. He told me I'd be in the way. Where are you? Chloe's voice was all business now. I'm coming over. Don't move. Don't do anything. I'm not going to break anything. Chloe, I said, and it was almost true. I'm going to break him. Good. But let's be strategic. I'm on my way. Do not engage. Do not call him. Just breathe. I ended the call. Breathe. I could do that. I could also do other things. I opened my phone settings. With methodical, vicious precision, I blocked Liam's number, then his mother's, his father's, his sister's, Tiffany, every Blackwell, every cousin, every family friend I could remember. I opened Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, blocked, blocked, blocked. I erased them from my digital world with the finality of a surgeon excising a tumor. Then, I moved to the heart of the matter. I opened my banking app, our joint checking account, where household expenses and his generous discretionary allowance flowed. I transferred the bulk of the liquid funds into my personal savings, leaving a balance of $10.17. I then placed a freeze on the account, citing suspected fraudulent activity. I repeated the process with our joint money market account. I logged into the brokerage account we held jointly, placed a trading freeze. It would prevent any sales or withdrawals. Next, the credit cards, the Platinum Amex on which he was an authorized user, frozen. The Visa Infinite, frozen. The high-limit store cards, frozen. One by one, I cut the financial arteries. He had his own cards, of course, linked to his personal accounts. But the big-ticket items, the hotels, the flights, the wedding expenses, those would likely be on the shared plastic. Or so I hoped. I saved the best for last. I navigated to the website for First Republic Bank, the holder of a safe deposit box, and, more importantly, the joint account tied to a rarely used money market fund seeded with the proceeds from the sale of my first startup. It was our oh shit fund, over $2 million. I initiated a complete freeze and flagged the account for a mandatory in-person review, effectively locking it down. With each click, a strange, cold calm settled over me. This was a hostile takeover, a leveraged buyout of my own life. He'd left me with the fort. I was now stripping it of every valuable asset and salting the earth. Finally, I opened my encrypted email. I drafted 2 messages. The first was to my personal attorney, David Chin. Subject line, urgent Blackwell matter. David, effective immediately. I am initiating divorce proceedings against Liam Blackwell on grounds of fraud, deceit, and irreconcilable differences. Attached, please find evidence video file of his marriage to another woman, Serafina, last name unknown, which took place in Wengen. Switzerland. Today. This marriage occurred while I was under the impression he was in Zurich attending to his mother's medical crisis. I have frozen all joint financial accounts. Please immediately prepare and file whatever legal documents are necessary to make this separation official and to protect my sole and separate property. Per the terms of our prenuptial agreement, I will be enforcing the infidelity and fraud clauses to the fullest extent. Expect a call from me within the hour. Raven. The second was to my CFO. Onyo. Subject line. Operation Black Swan execute. Onyo. Black Swan is a go. I repeat. Black Swan is a go. Initiate full protocol. 1. Change all administrative passwords on Silva Capital accounts. 2. Remove Liam Blackwell's viewing access, if any exists, from all financial dashboards. 3. Flag any incoming communications from Liam Blackwell or any Blackwell family member/associate for my direct review. 4. Ensure my personal and corporate credit lines are secured and separate. This is a personal/domestic security issue. No further detail required at this time. Acknowledge receipt. RS. I hit send on both. Then, and only then, did I let myself look at the video again. I watched it on a loop. 5 times. 10. I memorized the smile on his face, the cut of his tuxedo, the way the blonde, Serafina, gazed up at him with simpering devotion. I let the betrayal, the humiliation, the sheer, breathtaking audacity of it wash over me. I didn't cry. I metabolized it. I turned it into fuel. The doorbell rang. Chloe. I stood, my legs steady. I walked to the door, my back straight. I was no longer the wife who'd been left behind. I was the shareholder who'd just been defrauded. And I was about to call an emergency meeting. I opened the door. Chloe took one look at my face, saw the cold fire in my eyes, and pulled me into a fierce, wordless hug. Over her shoulder, I looked back into the empty, perfect house. The fort was held, and now the war would begin. Chloe didn't ask if I was okay. Chloe knew me. Instead, she marched into the kitchen, poured 2 generous glasses of bourbon, and pushed one into my hand. Drink, then talk, then we plan. The bourbon was a smooth, burning line down my throat, anchoring me to the present. I handed her my phone, the video already queued up. I watched her face as she watched it. The initial confusion melted into dawning horror, then solidified into a rage, so pure it was almost beautiful. That son of a bitch. She breathed, her voice low and vicious. She looked up at me. The cancer, the whole fucking performance, it was a wedding plan? He looked you in the eye and called you Nita so he could go marry some Swiss pastry named Serafina? She threw back her own bourbon. I will personally fly to Zurich and castrate him with a rusty spoon. One Jen. I corrected, my voice strangely calm. It's in the Bernese Oberland. And save the spoon. I have better tools. I laid it out for her. The frozen accounts, the emails to David and Anya, the digital blockade of his entire world. Chloe let out a low whistle. You froze the joint accounts, the Amex, the oh shit fund. Jesus, Raven, he's going to have a coronary. That's the idea. I said, the ice returning to my veins. But I need more. I need to know everything. Who is she? How long? Was Eleanor really in on it? The whole thing. A pie. Chloe stated immediately. You need a ghost. The best. Most expensive. Most discreet one in the city. I know a guy. He's ex-DEA. Does corporate espionage and messy divorces. He's a stone-cold professional. Doesn't exist unless you need him to. Call him. Now. Retain him. Money is no object. I want a full workup on Serafina. I want Liam's movements for the last 6 months. I want everything on Eleanor Blackwell's supposed medical condition. I want to know the name of the hotel, the florist, and the goddamn pastry chef at his wedding reception, while Chloe made the call in the other room. Her voice a low, intent murmur. I went to my study. I had a different kind of digging to do. Liam and I kept our finances largely separate, a stipulation from both our camps during the prenup negotiations. But there were joints, linkages, investments. I had viewing access to almost everything, a courtesy I'd rarely exercised, trusting in the cold efficiency of our prenup. That trust was now my greatest weapon. I logged into our shared financial management portal. I started with the credit card statements, working backwards from the current month. The charges were a roadmap to his betrayal. 3 months ago, a $5.400 charge from Swiss Air. I'd been in Austin closing the Datadyne deal. He'd said he was at a partner retreat in Napa. 2 months ago, a $3.200 charge from the Dolder Grand in Zurich, a last-minute client summit in London. He'd told me, staying at the Connaught, a quick cross-check showed a separate, smaller charge from a pub in Mayfair on the same day to cover. No doubt, purchased with a different card. 6 weeks ago, a $12.000 charge from a high-end jeweler on Zurich's Bahnhofstrasse, a watch for my father's birthday. He'd said his father wore a Timex from 1987. 1 month ago, a $1.800 charge from a boutique in Wengen called Alpenblum, women's apparel, followed by an $850 charge for a marriage license application fee from the local Gemeinde House. My breath hitched. The evidence was so brazen, so careless, or perhaps he'd never imagined I'd look. Why would I? I was the trusting wife, holding the fort. Then, the final, galling set, charges from the last 72 hours, first-class upgrades, a 5-figure charge from the Bergasthos in Wengen at the hotel attached to the chapel, a $25.000 charge from a local event planner, a $15.000 charge from the very same jeweler, the wedding band, presumably, all of it, every last betrayal, was itemized on our shared Platinum Amex. The card I had just frozen, my personal phone, the one I hadn't blocked him on yet, began to buzz. A Zurich number. It buzzed once, stopped, then buzzed again, and again, a torrent of calls. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, my work phone rang, then the landline. He was carpet bombing every line. Chloe came back in. His name is Marcus Thorne. He's on it. He'll have a preliminary by morning. He said, and I quote, "Tell your client to save the emotional shit for later. Right now, she's a CEO and this is an acquisition gone bad. Treat it as such." I like him. I almost smiled. I'll invoice my heartbreak later. I gestured to the screens. Look at this. He didn't even try to hide it. He used our card. Chloe peered over my shoulder, her eyes widening. The arrogant prick. He thought you'd never look. Or he thought you'd just accept it. She pointed to the jeweler charge. The watch for Dad. Huh. My work phone buzzed again. This time, it was David Chin. I put him on speaker. "Raven, I got your email." And the video. David's voice was the epitome of calm, professional lethality. I've already filed the petition for legal separation and initiated the divorce proceedings under the fraud and bad faith clauses of your prenuptial agreement. The video is prima facie evidence of marital misconduct of the highest order. I've also filed for a temporary restraining order freezing all joint assets, which essentially mirrors what you've already done, but gives it the court stamp. He won't be able to unfreeze a dime without a judge. And no judge is going to look kindly on a man who drained marital funds to finance a secret wedding. What's my exposure? David? I asked, my eyes on the spreadsheet of lies. Minimal to none. Your prenup is a masterpiece of pessimism. It protects your premarital assets, your growth in Silva Capital, and clearly outlines infidelity and financial deception as grounds for him forfeiting any claim to your separate property. His separate property that his inheritance, his trust fund that remains his, but the joint assets, the ones you've frozen, are where it gets interesting, given the circumstances. A judge is likely to award you the vast majority, if not all, as reparations. He spent marital money on an affair and a second marriage. That's not just cheating, Raven. That's financial fraud. He's in a world of trouble. Good, I said. The word's simple and final. There's more. David continued. I took the liberty of having a junior associate do a quick public records search in Switzerland. A marriage license for Liam Blackwell and Serafina von Hausen was filed and approved in the canton of Bern 2 days ago. Von Hausen? Chloe mouthed. Old family, minor nobility, but the money's been gone for generations. I murmured, a piece of the puzzle snapping into place. Of course, Eleanor's obsession with bloodlines. This wasn't just an affair, it was an upgrade. In her eyes, I've also seen a flurry of activity on the credit monitoring service for your joint cards. David said, multiple attempted charges are being declined. Hotels, restaurants, what looks like a sizable payment to a wedding venue. The denials started about an hour ago, right on schedule. I imagine the scene. The happy couple at a post-wedding dinner. The sommelier discreetly informing Liam his card had been declined. The heat of humiliation crawling up his neck. What's my next move? I asked. Do not engage. Do not answer his calls. Every desperate voicemail, every raging text is more evidence for us. Let him spin out. I'll have him formally serve the papers at his hotel in Switzerland. I'd like to be a fly on that wall. In the meantime, live your life. Be seen. Project Absolute. Unshakable normalcy. It drives people like him insane. We hung up. The phone immediately buzzed again with a blocked number. Then a text lit up my personal screen, the one he could still reach. Liam.Raven. We need to talk. It's urgent. There's been a misunderstanding. Call me. I showed it to Chloe. She snorted. A misunderstanding? Yeah. He misunderstood what happens when you commit bigamy and fraud. I didn't reply. I poured another finger of bourbon. The anger was no longer cold. It was a focused, white-hot beam. I was done being a victim. I was now the prosecutor, the judge, and soon, the executioner. The next morning, Marcus Thorne called. His voice was a low, gravelly baritone, devoid of emotion. Ms. Silva, preliminary report. Subject, Serafina von Hausen. Age 26. No occupation listed. Daughter of Graf Friedrich and Grafin Anneliese von Hausen. Family owns a crumbling castle in Graubünden and a mountain of debt. They've been shopping her to the dwindling European aristocracy for the last 5 years. Your husband was their Hail Mary. The marriage secures a significant, undisclosed sum from the Blackwell Family Trust to bail out the von Hausen estates in exchange for the title and the appropriate bloodline. So, it was a transaction, a business arrangement, as Liam had stupidly tried to claim in his defense later. My stomach churned. Subject Eleanor Blackwell. Marcus continued. No record of any medical treatment in Zurich, Bern, Geneva, or Lausanne in the past 12 months. No appointments with any oncologist named Reinhardt. She has, however, been a frequent guest at the Bauer Olac and the Dolder Grand over the past 6 months, meeting with Frau von Hausen and her daughter. Flight records show she flew to Zurich with your husband 3 days ago. As you knew, they were met at the airport by the von Hausens. They all proceeded directly to Wingen. The wedding planner charge on your card was for a package at the Bergasthos Chapel. It was booked 6 weeks in advance. 6 weeks. He'd been planning this for 6 weeks, while sharing my bed, while eating the meals our cook prepared, while discussing our non-existent future. The deception was so vast, so calculated, it took my breath away. And my husband's movements? I asked, my voice tight, consistent with the financial data you provided. Multiple trips to Zurich under false pretenses. I'm compiling a full timeline. I also have audio. He paused. From a source close to the Von Hausens. The mother is quite talkative when she's had champagne. Do you want to hear it? Yes, I said, my knuckles white around the phone. There was a click, then a stream of audio, slightly muffled but clear. A woman's voice, haughty and tinged with a German accent. Anneliese von Hausen. Of course, the Blackwell money is American, but one must be practical. The title still opens doors in Europe that his new money cannot. And Serafina will be a proper wife, not like that businesswoman he was entangled with. Eleanor is finally getting the daughter-in-law she deserves. A proper alliance. The Americans' money will restore the house, and our name will give their fortune a patina of history. It is, as they say, a win-win. Once the nuisance in San Francisco is dealt with. Of course, the audio cut. Marcus came back on. There's more, but that's the gist. You were the nuisance. The deal was brokered by Eleanor. Your husband appears to have been a willing, if perhaps reluctant, participant. He's been telling people here that the separation from you was long and painful, but amicable. A laugh, bitter and sharp, escaped me. Thank you, Marcus. This is perfect. Keep digging. I want everything. Already on it. One more thing. The decline charges. Your husband is currently attempting to secure a line of credit against his personal assets at a Zurich bank. Given the sudden nature of his request and the unusual circumstances, it's not going well. He's becoming desperate. I smiled then. A real, cold smile. Good. Let him sweat. Send me the full report and the invoice. I ended the call and looked at Chloe, who had heard everything on speakerphone. Her face was a mask of fury and triumph. A nuisance. She hissed. A business arrangement. He traded you in for a title and a pile of debt. The last piece of the puzzle slammed into place. The final, ugly truth. It wasn't even about passion. It was about social climbing, his mother's snobbery, his own weakness, and a bankrupt family's last gamble. I had been discarded for a better business deal. My phone buzzed again. A new text. The tone shifting from confusion to panic. Liam, Raven, this isn't funny. The cards are all declined. The hotel is asking for payment. Seriously, call me now. Then, a minute later, Liam, fine, you want to play games? My lawyer will be in touch. You'll be sorry you did this. I picked up the phone, not to call him, to take a screenshot of his texts. Then, I typed a single-line reply, my fingers steady and sure. Me, congratulations on the wedding. Liam, I've taken the liberty of sending a gift. You'll find it in your email. Give my best to your mother and your new wife. I attached the wedding video from his cousin's feed. I hit send. Then, and only then, did I block the last remaining point of contact. The final thread, severed. The silence that followed was profound. It wasn't the silence of abandonment anymore. It was the silence of a battlefield after the first. Devastating salvo. The air was clear. The enemy was in disarray. And I was just getting started. He thought a declined credit card was the problem. He had no idea what was coming. For days. It took Liam 4 days to crawl back from his Swiss fairy tale. For days of glorious, revealing silence on my end, and a crescendo of panic on his. My phone, now purged of his number, was a fortress. But David Chin kept me updated with terse, satisfying emails. The divorce petition and asset freeze had been formally served by a Swiss process server at the Bergasthos. The return receipt included a note. Recipient, Liam Blackwell, became verbally combative. Hotel management was alerted. Frau Serafina Blackwell, née von Hausen, was observed crying in the lobby. Good. Marcus Thorne's full report had landed. A comprehensive dossier of deceit. I knew the cost of the flowers, 8,000 euros, paid for with RMX. Declined. The menu for the wedding breakfast, champagne and oysters. Naturally. And the exact, dwindling balance of the Von Hausen Family Trust 152 euros and 47 cents. I knew that Eleanor's miraculous recovery had involved a 500 euro spa package and a new Chanel suit purchased the afternoon after the wedding. I knew everything. Knowledge was no longer just power, it was a weapon, polished and sharpened. He arrived on a Tuesday morning. I had been expecting him. David had warned me that Liam, unable to secure significant funds in Zurich and facing a marital and financial implosion, would have to return to the source of the problem, me. I saw the black town car, his town car, from the firm's account pull up the curved driveway of our Pacific Heights home from the security monitor in my study. I was already dressed, not in the vulnerable loungewear of a betrayed wife, but in a sharp, cream-colored Veronica Beard suit, my hair pulled back, my makeup flawless. I was going to war, one dressed for the occasion. I waited until I heard the key fumble in the lock, then the muffled curse. He'd tried his key. I'd had the locks changed within an hour of seeing the wedding video. I let him ring the bell, once, twice, 3 times, each press longer, more insistent. I took my time walking to the door, pausing to check my reflection in a hall mirror. Cool, composed, untouchable. I opened the door. He looked ruined. The picture of aristocratic composure was gone. His suit was rumpled, the same one he'd flown to Zurich in. I realized. Shadows bruised the skin under his bloodshot eyes. His face was pale, etched with a deep, furious anxiety. He'd always been handsome in a bland, prep school way. Now, he just looked desperate. Raven. He breathed, the word a mixture of relief and rage. He tried to step inside. I didn't move from the doorway. Liam, back so soon? I thought the treatment protocol would take weeks. Let me in. He growled, trying to shoulder past me. I held my ground. This is my home. You're not welcome here. Say what you have to say from there. His composure snapped. Have you lost your fucking mind? He roared, the sound echoing in the vaulted foyer behind me. A neighbor's dog started barking. Freezing the accounts. Changing the locks. My mother is sick, and you're throwing some psychotic, jealous tantrum over a goddamn misunderstanding. What is wrong with you? I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. The picture of calm, a misunderstanding. I repeated, my voice flat. Explain it to me. Then, I'm all ears. How is marrying another woman in Switzerland while telling your wife you're at your mother's deathbed a misunderstanding? He flinched, but the anger bulldozed through. It's not what it looked like. It looked like a wedding. Liam, you, in a tuxedo. Her, in a white dress. A priest. Your mother, looking remarkably healthy for someone on death's door, beaming in the front row. Tiffany's hashtags were particularly illuminating. Hashtag Blackwell Wedding. Which part did I misunderstand? The color drained from his face, completely. He hadn't known I'd seen it. He'd thought the account freeze was a coincidental bank error, or a petty reaction to his absence. The realization that I knew, that really knew, hit him like a physical blow. His bluster deflated, replaced by a scrambling panic. It wasn't planned like this. He stammered, his voice dropping, trying for contrition. It was a poor performance. Mom, she pressured me. You know how she is. The Von Hausen's their name. Their connections in Europe. It's important for the firm's expansion. Serafina, it's a business arrangement. A merger. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't change what we have. I stared at him, letting the stunning, breathtaking audacity of his words hang in the air between us. I actually laughed. A short, humorless sound. A business arrangement. A merger. I shook my head, a slow smile spreading on my lips. One that didn't reach my eyes. You're right, Liam. It doesn't change what we have, because what we have is a prenuptial agreement with very clear clauses regarding infidelity and fraud. And what you have is a new wife you can't afford, a mother who's a co-conspirator to bigamy, and a mountain of debt you just committed marital funds to. How's the merger looking now? His jaw worked. The panic was morphing into a colder, Uglier fury. You bitch. He hissed. You vindictive. Heartless bitch. You're trying to ruin me. No, I said, my voice dropping to a deadly quiet. You ruined yourself. I'm just holding you accountable. You committed fraud. You lied. You used our shared money to fund your little alpine fantasy. Our marriage was a prop to you, a placeholder until your mother found you a suitable broodmare with a title. Now the prop is done. Get off my property. I started to close the door. He slammed his hand against it, his face contorted. You can't do this. You froze everything. I have nothing. The hotel in Zurich. The wedding bells, they're calling me. Serafina is hysterical. The concern in his voice wasn't for me, or for the wreck of our life. It was for his new bride's hysterics and his own embarrassment. It was the final nail. That sounds like a you problem, I said sweetly. Maybe your mother can float you alone. Or your new in-laws. Oh, wait. I pretended to remember. They're bankrupt. That's why they sold you their daughter. Bad deal. Liam, you overpaid. He looked like he wanted to strangle me. I'll fight you. I'll drag you through every court. I'll tell them you're unstable. A jealous harpy who froze a dying woman's son out of his accounts. Go ahead, I said, my voice like steel. I have the wedding video. I have the financial records showing you bought the ring and paid for the license 6 weeks ago, while you were still sharing my bed. I have sworn statements from a private investigator detailing your mother's perfect health and her multiple meetings with the Von Hausens. I have audio of your new mother-in-law calling me the nuisance in San Francisco. I leaned forward, just an inch. You try to fight me, and I will bury you. I will own the shirt on your back. I will make sure every partner at your firm, every one of your trust fund friends, every person in this city knows that Liam Blackwell is a cheap, fraudulent bigamist who married a gold-digging aristocrat because mommy told him to. Now, get your hand off my door before I call the police and have you arrested for trespassing. The fight left him all at once. The anger crumpled into something pathetic and broken. This was the real Liam, not the powerful attorney, not the scion of a good family, a weak, mother-pleasing boy who'd been caught. His shoulders slumped. Raven, please, he whispered, tears actually springing to his eyes, manipulative to the end. I love you. It was a mistake, a terrible, stupid mistake. We can fix this. We can annul it. It was never consummated. It's just paper. I looked at him. This man I'd shared a life with for 8 years. I felt nothing. Not hate. Not love. Not even pity. Just a vast, empty contempt. You love me. I repeated. You have a funny way of showing it. The only thing you ever brought to this table, Liam, was audacity. And now, even that's gone. You're just a punchline. From my jacket pocket, I pulled out a thick, legal-sized envelope. I held it out to him. This is a copy of the divorce petition, the temporary restraining order freezing all assets, and a cease and desist order instructing you to refrain from contacting me or coming within 500 yards of this property or my place of work. Your official copies have been delivered to your office. Consider this a courtesy. He stared at the envelope as if it were a live snake. He didn't take it. I let it drop. It landed on the imported Italian marble of the doorstep with a soft slap. Your things will be packed and sent to your club. Don't come back here. I finally succeeded in closing the door. I engaged the deadbolt with a firm, final click. I stood there, listening. I heard a raw, guttural sound of fury, then the crunch of paper as he presumably kicked the envelope. Then, silence. A minute later, the soft purr of the town car, pulling away. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. My hands were steady. My heart rate was normal. The confrontation was over, and I had won, decisively. But the war wasn't over. I walked back to my study. On my desk, my computer chimed. An email notification. The sender, Eleanor.Blackwell@blackwelltrust.com. The subject line, Urgent. Call me. I opened it. Raven. I don't know what poisonous lies you've been filling Liam's head with, but your behavior is unconscionable. Freezing joint assets? During a family medical crisis? It's ghoulish. And now I hear you've locked him out of his own home? I always knew you were ruthless in business, but I never thought you'd sink to this level of cruelty. You will unfreeze those accounts immediately and cease this childish tantrum. My son is under enough stress. I will not have you making it worse. We are the Blackwells. We do abide this kind of melodrama. Fix this. Now, Eleanor, I read it twice. The sheer, unadulterated gall of it took my breath away. The matriarch, circling the wagons, trying to intimidate me with the weight of the Blackwell name, as if that name meant anything to me now except a synonym for deceit. I didn't reply to her. Instead, I opened a new email. I attached the wedding video file. In the recipient field, I carefully entered every email address I had for the women of Eleanor's social circle, the ladies of the Symphony Board, the Garden Club, the Heritage Society, every brittle, pearl-clutching socialite whose approval she craved. The subject line was simple. Congratulations. The body of the email was even simpler. Dear all, I'm sure you'll join me in congratulating my soon-to-be ex-husband, Liam Blackwell, and his beautiful new bride, Serafina von Hausen, on their recent marriage in Wengen, Switzerland. It was such a romantic, surprise ceremony. I'm so happy Liam's mother, Eleanor, made such a miraculous recovery from her recent critical illness to be there to celebrate. Wishing the happy couple all the best. Warmly, Raven Silva. I hovered over the send button for just a second. This wasn't just a strike back at Liam. This was scorched earth on Eleanor's meticulously curated social standing. She wanted a proper daughter-in-law. She could have her, and she could have the scandal, the whispers, the ridicule that came with it. I clicked send. The whoosh off the email leaving my outbox was the most satisfying sound I'd heard in days. The first salvo had been private, financial. The second was public, social, and utterly lethal. I picked up the phone and called David Chin. He was just here. It's done. He's been served. Also, I just emailed Eleanor Blackwell's entire contact list a wedding announcement. There was a beat of silence on the other end. Then, a low chuckle. Remind me never to get on your bad side. Raven. That's elegant. The social fallout will be nuclear. It also preempts any narrative they might try to spin about you being unstable or unreasonable. You've just publicly and graciously acknowledged the marriage. Brilliant. What's next? I asked. My eyes on the monitor were the sent email Saturday, a digital grenade that had just landed in the heart of Eleanor's world. Now, we wait for the counterattack. It will come. He'll get a lawyer, probably some old family friend who's in over his head. They'll bluster, threaten, maybe even try to paint you as the villain for abandoning him during his mother's illness. But we have the evidence. We have the timeline. We have the prenup. This is a slam dunk. In the meantime, live your life. Be visible. Be unbothered. It's the best revenge. I hung up, unbothered. I could do that. I looked around my beautiful, empty, silent house. It didn't feel like a cage anymore. It felt like a command center. And the battle, for the first time, felt decisively mine. The shock and pain were gone, burned away by the clean, cold fire of fury. He'd thought he could discard me and move on without consequence. He'd thought I'd be the quiet, wounded ex-wife, paid off and shuffled aside. He'd thought wrong. The nuisance had just declared war, and I had no intention of losing. David Chen's prediction of a counterattack arrived 2 days later, not as a legal summons, but as a poison pen email from Liam's newly retained attorney, a man named Reginald Reg, Worthington 3. The name reeked of old money clubrooms and dusty law libraries. Exactly the kind of family retainer I'd expected. Ms. Silva.it began. with a deliberate omission of my married name. I represent Mr. Liam Blackwell in the matter of your impending divorce. Your recent actions to the unlawful freezing of jointly held assets, the malicious dissemination of private information, the changing of locks on a marital residence constitute a campaign of financial abuse and harassment. Furthermore, we are deeply troubled by your apparent instability during a period of profound family crisis. Mr. Blackwell was abroad attending to his gravely ill mother, a fact you have cynically manipulated. We demand you immediately unfreeze all accounts, restore access to the marital home, and cease all defamatory communications. Failure to do so will leave us no choice but to pursue all available legal remedies, including but not limited to filing for a restraining order against you on Mr. Blackwell's behalf and seeking significant financial penalties for your reckless and vindictive conduct. I read it twice, a slow smile spreading across my face. Financial abuse. Instability. They were trying to flip the script. It was clumsy, desperate, and transparent. They had no evidence, only audacity. I forwarded it to David with a single-line note. A restraining order. I'm quaking. David's reply was swift. Standard bluster. They have no case, and he knows it. The gravely ill mother line is particularly rich. Given the evidence, ignore. Proceed as planned. As planned had a specific meaning. Tonight was the annual Gold Coast Charity Gala, the single most pretentious, socially rigid event on the San Francisco calendar. It was Liam's firm's pet cause, and for years, I'd endured it as a necessary wifely duty, smiling beside him while his partners' wives condescended to the clever girl in venture capital. This year, I'd bought a table for Silva Capital. I was going to make an entrance. Chloe, my co-conspirator and date for the evening, arrived at 6. She took one look at me in the floor-length, gunmetal gray, custom Jason Wu dress, a dress that managed to be both severe and spectacular. All sharp angles and cold shine, and let out a low whistle. You look like $1,000,000. Actually, you look like you're about to make someone lousy $1,000,000. It's perfect. Regretting the table yet? It's $10,000 a plate to watch a bunch of dinosaurs pat each other on the back. It's an investment, I said, adjusting a diamond earring. The ROI tonight will be spectacular. The gala was at the Legion of Honor, the neoclassical museum perched on a cliff overlooking the Golden Gate. The air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume, champagne, and unearned privilege. As we entered, a ripple went through the crowd. I felt the stares, heard the whispers hidden behind flutes of crystal. The email had done its work. The story of Liam's Swiss wedding, Eleanor's miraculous recovery, and my subsequent financial lockdown was the juiciest scandal to hit this crowd in a decade. I met every gaze with a cool, unflinching smile, nodding to acquaintances as if nothing were amiss. I saw him halfway through the cocktail hour. Liam stood near the bar, flanked by 2 senior partners from his firm. He wore a tuxedo that looked suspiciously like the one from the wedding video. He was trying to project an air of unbothered normalcy, but the strain was etched around his eyes. His laughter at a partner's joke was a beat too loud, too forced. He hadn't seen me yet. Eleanor was there, of course, in a stiff brocade suit, holding court with a coterie of her blue-haired friends. She saw me. Our eyes locked across the room. Her face, usually a mask of placid superiority, tightened into a rictus of pure, venomous hatred. I raised my champagne glass in a tiny, mocking toast. She looked away, her neck mottled with red splotches. Target at 2 o'clock, Chloe murmured, sipping her drink. He looks like he's about to vibrate out of his skin. The partners with him look uncomfortable. Good, I said. Let's make them more uncomfortable. The plan was simple. I would wait for the right moment. The gala had a portion where the biggest donors were acknowledged from the podium. As a table purchaser and a significant past donor, I knew my name would be called. I would go up, accept the token thanks, and then speak my piece. Dinner was a surreal pantomime. I sat with my team from Silva Capital, a bubble of fierce loyalty in the sea of curious and judgmental stares. Conversation flowed easily about market trends and upcoming IPOs. We were in our world, and it was a world far more real and consequential than the gilded theater around us. I caught snippets of gossip floating over from other tables, ran off with some European countess, froze everything, left him stranded. Eleanor is apparently mortified, always knew she was too hard for him. Then, it was time. The elderly board chairman, Preston Hollingsworth, took the microphone to thank the benefactors. He droned through a list of names and corporations. And of course, our steadfast friends at Blackwell, Thorne Creighton, polite applause. Liam stood, gave a stiff little wave, his smile a grimace, and we are so delighted to welcome a new, but incredibly impactful supporter this year, the formidable Silva Capital, led by the visionary Raven Silva. The applause this time was more hesitant, laced with curiosity. I stood, smoothing the gray silk of my dress. I walked to the podium, the click of my heels the only sound in the suddenly quiet room. I could feel hundreds of eyes on me. I took the small, engraved crystal plaque from a bewildered-looking Preston. "Thank you, Preston," I said into the microphone, my voice clear and calm, carrying easily in the hushed space. I turned to face the crowd. I found Liam in the sea of faces. He was staring at me, pale, a deer in the headlights of a speeding truck. "I'm honored to be here tonight, supporting such a vital cause." I began, the picture of gracious professionalism. And I have to say, it's wonderful to be in a room full of so many familiar faces, especially after the rather eventful few weeks I've had. A nervous titter ran through the crowd. This was not in the script. I offered a small, self-deprecating smile. Many of you have likely heard the whispers. So, let me just say, for the record, to avoid any confusion, I paused, letting the silence stretch. While I am personally navigating a rather unexpected and abrupt end to my marriage, my focus remains on my work, my team, and causes like this one. I glanced at Liam, my gaze cool and direct, and I do want to take a moment to offer my most sincere congratulations, publicly, to my soon-to-be ex-husband, Liam Blackwell. The room was so quiet you could hear the ice melting in the champagne buckets. I continued, my tone light, almost conversational. "Congratulations, Liam, on your recent marriage to Serafina von Hausen in Switzerland. It looked like a beautiful ceremony, and a special congratulations to his mother, Eleanor." I turned my gaze to her table. She looked like she was about to have an aneurysm. Truly, a medical miracle. "I'm so delighted to see you looking so vibrant tonight. Eleanor, the last I heard, you were facing a critical, life-threatening illness in Zurich. To go from that to dancing at your son's wedding in Wengen in just a few days, it's inspiring. Really, a testament to Swiss healthcare. Or perhaps just to the restorative power of a good Chanel suit." The gasps were audible now. A few shocked laughs were hastily stifled. Preston Hollingsworth was making frantic cut gestures at me from the side of the stage. I ignored him. "I know there's been some confusion," I said, my voice hardening just a fraction, the polite mask slipping to reveal the steel beneath. "So, to clear it all up, let me share the happy news with everyone." I gave a small nod to Chloe, who was standing by the AV technician we'd discreetly bribed earlier. The massive screen behind me, which had been displaying the charity's logo, flickered to life. There, 20 feet tall, was the video from Tiffany's Instagram. Liam, beaming, in his wedding tux. Serafina, in her elaborate dress. The kiss, the caption, #BlackwellWedding, #Swiss Fairy Tale. The gasps turned into a collective roar of shock. I heard a woman's voice cry, "Oh, my God, The video froze on the kiss. Then, with a slick click, the screen split. On one side, the wedding video remained frozen. On the other, a series of documents appeared, blown up for easy reading. First, a credit card statement with the 12,000 euros charge to the Zurich jeweler highlighted. The description read, Bahnhofstrasse in Schmuck, purchase. Next, the marriage license application from the One-Gen Gemeinde House, dated 6 weeks prior. Then, a receipt from the Burgasthos for the wedding package, also highlighted. Finally, a screenshot of a sleek medical clinic website with text circled, our state-of-the-art oncology wing. Under the direction of Dr. Reinhardt, a large red X was drawn over it, and next to it, a photo from Marcus Thorne's dossier, Eleanor Blackwell, wearing the very Chanel suit I'd mentioned, laughing as she left a Zurich spa, dated the day after the supposed diagnosis. I turned back to the microphone. The room was in chaos. Liam had gone from pale to a sickly gray. One of the partners next to him had a hand on his arm, as if restraining him or holding him up. Eleanor had vanished from her seat. So you see, I said, my voice cutting through the din, amplified and perfectly calm. It's all a happy story, a surprise wedding, a mother's miraculous recovery, and a new chapter for the Blackwell family. I wish them all the very best. I let my eyes sweep the horrified, fascinated crowd. As for me, I'm looking forward to my own new chapter, one with significantly less creative fiction. Thank you. I placed the crystal plaque gently on the podium, gave a small, gracious nod, and walked off the stage. The silence held for a 3 count, then erupted into a cacophony of voices. I didn't look back. Chloe fell into step beside me, a fierce grin on her face. Holy shit, Raven, that wasn't a reveal. That was a public execution. A social autopsy. I corrected, my stride never faltering as we made our way through the parting crowd. People stared, some with shock, some with barely concealed glee, a few older women with disapproval. I didn't care. We were almost at the door when he materialized in front of us, blocking the exit. Liam, his composure was utterly shattered. His face was a mask of fury and humiliation. You psychotic bitch. He spat, his voice trembling. How dare you? How fucking dare you? You've ruined me. You've ruined everything. I stopped, looking at him as if he were a strange insect. I ruined you? You did that yourself. Liam, I just provided the evidence. Consider it a courtesy. Now, get out of my way. You'll pay for this. He hissed, taking a step closer. The scent of stale scotch was on his breath. I'll destroy you. I'll take Silva Capital apart piece by piece. You'll do nothing. A new, calm voice interjected. David Chin had appeared at my elbow, seemingly from nowhere. He held up his phone. And if you don't step back, Mr. Blackwell, I will be dialing 911 and having you arrested for making threats and harassment. The restraining order application is already with the judge. I'd hate for your night to end in a holding cell. Again, Liam's eyes darted from David to me, wild with impotent rage. He saw the unwavering coldness in my gaze, the silent witnesses all around us. The fight drained out of him, leaving only a hollow, defeated shell. The man who had called me needy, who had planned a secret wedding, who had thought he could have it all without consequence, was gone. In his place was a ghost. He stumbled back, muttering something incoherent, and turned, shoving his way through the crowd towards the bar. David looked at me, a bit theatrical, but effective. You've just made any settlement negotiation 1,000 times easier. He has zero social capital left. Well done. Thank you, David, for being here. It's the best show in town, he said dryly. Now, I'd suggest you leave. You've made your point. Spectacularly. Chloe and I walked out into the cool San Francisco night. The valet brought my car around. As we pulled away from the museum, its columns glowing in the darkness, My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You vicious, gutter-born whore. You'll never be welcomed in decent society again. You've made an enemy for life. Eleanor Blackwell. I showed it to Chloe. She laughed. Decent society? Honey, you just burned that whole fucking treehouse down. Where to? I need a real drink. I looked at the text, then out at the glittering skyline of the city that was mine again. I deleted the message. Home, I said. I have a company to run tomorrow. The gala was over. Liam's reputation was in tatters. Eleanor's social standing was ash. The narrative was set, irrevocably. He was the lying, cheating bigamist. She was the scheming, social climbing matriarch. And I was the wronged wife who'd fought back with flawless, brutal precision. The first public battle was over. I'd not only won, I'd rewritten the rules of engagement. The war would continue, but the enemy was now wounded, exposed, and running scared. The fallout from the gala was immediate and delicious. David Chen's email the next morning was a masterpiece of understated glee. Reginald Worthington III has withdrawn as Liam Blackwell's counsel, citing irreconcilable differences. The new attorney, a litigator from a mid-tier firm, has already contacted us. He's offering a settlement. Liam walks away with his personal trust fund intact. And you keep everything else. He's waving the white flag. He wants it to go away. Quietly, I read the email in my office at Silva Capital. The morning sun gleaming off the San Francisco Bay outside my window. Chloe was perched on the edge of my desk, sipping a latte. A white flag, she said, arching an eyebrow. After that performance last night, he's not surrendering. He's trying to salvage the life raft. The trust fund is probably all he has left that isn't tied to you or already promised to the Vaughn has-beens. Exactly, I said, my fingers steepled. It's not a surrender. It's a tactical retreat, so he can regroup. He gets to keep his family money, untouched. He licks his wounds, moves to Europe with his titled bride, and lives off the trust while his mother and her new alliance try to rebuild their social capital. No, I shook my head, a cold certainty settling in my gut. I didn't freeze accounts and publicly eviscerate him so he could have a comfortable exile. I want him to feel the consequences, all of them. I typed a reply to David. Reject the offer. Counter. He gets nothing from the joint assets. He repays, with interest, every cent of marital money spent on Serafina von Hausen, the wedding, and his medical trips to Zurich, as quantified in the attached forensic accounting report. He also covers all my legal fees. We proceed to court. The prenup is clear, but I want a judge to affirm it publicly. Let's make it official. David's reply was almost instant. Aggressive. I like it. It will terrify him. Sending now. The counteroffer was the equivalent of throwing a lit match into a room, soaked in gasoline. Liam's new lawyer, a harried-sounding man named Bill Garner, called David within the hour. I listened on speakerphone in David's office, the legal equivalent of a fly on the wall. David, be reasonable, Garner pleaded, his voice strained. My client is willing to concede the joint assets. All of them. That's millions. Your client walks away the clear financial winner, demanding repayment of, what is this? Euro 280.000 plus legal fees is punitive. It's vindictive. A judge will see it that way. David's voice was calm, ice cold. Bill, a judge will see a man who defrauded his wife, committed bigamy, and used marital funds to finance an affair and a second marriage. The prenup allows for the forfeiture of joint assets in cases of fraud. My client is well within her rights to pursue full restitution. We have the receipts. We have the timeline. We have the marriage certificate. This isn't about being punitive. It's about making the victim whole. The Euro 280.000 is the direct financial cost of his deceit. Why should my client subsidize his new life? He's not a monster. David, Garner argued weakly. He made a mistake, a terrible, life-altering mistake. He's lost his reputation, his standing. He lost those the moment he said, "I do" to another woman. David cut in, his tone losing its professional patience. My client's offer stands. We're also preparing to file a civil suit for intentional infliction of emotional distress and fraud. The discovery process for that will be extensive. We'll subpoena every email, every text, every financial record from the Blackwell Family Trust for the last 5 years. We'll depose Eleanor Blackwell. We'll depose Serafina von Hausen. We'll depose the wedding planner. We will turn over every rock in their very privileged world. Or he can sign the agreement we sent. His choice. The silence on the other end of the line was profound. I could almost hear Liam, hovering nearby, his world crumbling. Garner finally spoke, his voice barely a whisper. I'll present it to my client. The call ended. David looked at me. He'll refuse. His mother will tell him to refuse. The idea of the trust being exposed to discovery, that's their holy of holies. They'll fight, badly, but they'll fight. Good, I said. Let them. The legal battle became a war of attrition, fought in dry court documents and brutal depositions. But my battlefield was wider. I met with Anya, my CFO, and we executed Phase 2. The Blackwell Family Trust has a 15% silent stake in the Coastal Winery Fund. I told her, pointing to a line on a financial disclosure, a fund in which Silva Capital is the largest limited partner. I want to initiate a forced buyout clause. Cite reputational risk to the fund. The recent very public scandal involving a principal of the trust constitutes a material risk to the fund's brand and investor confidence. Anya's eyes gleamed with the cold light of financial warfare. It's a stretch, but the clause is vague enough. It'll trigger a valuation battle. It will tie up a chunk of their liquid assets in legal fees and appraisal costs for months. It's a nuisance suit, but a very expensive one. Perfect. I said, do it. Next, I called Marcus Thorne, the von Hausen debts. Who holds them? Mainly a private consortium of Austrian banks. He replied, nasty bunch. They've been leaning on the old graph for years. Send them an anonymous package. I instructed all the evidence of Liam's financial freeze, the divorce proceedings, the fact that the expected Blackwell trust infusion is now highly unlikely, if not impossible. Make it clear the von Hausen bailout is dead in the water. Will do. That should cause some interesting panic on that side of the pond. It did, within a week. Liam's new, already strained marriage was hit with a tsunami of external pressure. The von Hausens, realizing their golden goose was not only cooked, but being sued for the price of the pan, turned on Liam and Eleanor. Serafina, I learned from Marcus, was not the simpering innocent she appeared, trapped in a marriage with a man who was broke, publicly humiliated, and living in a borrowed apartment. She was furious. I received an email. The sender address was a cryptic string of numbers, but the subject line was clear. Serafina. Cautiously, I opened it. Ms. Silva, you do not know me, but I believe we have a common problem. I was sold a lie. I was told Liam Blackwell was a wealthy, powerful man ending in amicable, childless separation. I was told you were a non-entity. I see now I was a pawn in his mother's game and a fool in my family's desperation. I have no interest in being married to a liar and a coward. I am seeking an annulment. I have information. The wedding was entirely Eleanor's scheme. Liam was resistant, but he is weak. He always does what she says. I have emails. I have recordings of her promises to my parents. I want my freedom. And I want to see Eleanor Blackwell's face when her perfect plan explodes. Will you speak with me? S. I stared at the screen. This was an unexpected gift. A turncoat from within the enemy's camp. I forwarded it to David and Marcus. Verify it's her. If it is, set up a secure channel. Let's talk. The alliance was formed. Serafina, it turned out, was not just angry, she was smart, pragmatic, and as betrayed as I was, she provided a digital trove of evidence. Emails from Eleanor to her parents outlining the merger, audio clips of Eleanor belittling me and assuring the Von Hausens I would be dealt with quietly, and records of the promised financial transfers that were now, thanks to me, impossible. Armed with this, David dismantled Liam's legal defense in a series of brutal depositions. When Liam tried to cling to the narrative of a business merger under duress, David played a clip Serafina provided. Eleanor's voice, crisp and cold Liam. Sentimentality is for the middle class. Raven was a phase, a successful one, I grant you, but a phase. The Silva money is new and loud. The Von Hausen name is history. It's time to grow up and do your duty. She'll be fine. She has her little business. We'll be generous in the settlement. But you will get on that plane to Zurich, and you will marry that girl. It's what's best for the family. It's what's expected. Liam's voice, muted, defeated, and if I don't, Eleanor, then you can explain to the trustees why you forfeited your role in the family. The trust is a privilege. Liam, not a right, one tied to responsibility. My responsibility is to ensure the Blackwell legacy. Yours is to obey it. In the face of this, Liam's resistance crumbled. The court ruled. The prenup was enforced in its entirety. The joint accounts, already frozen, were formally awarded to me. Liam was also ordered to repay euro 280.450.12 to the marital estate, plus my legal fees, which now approached another $200.000. His personal trust fund was protected, but it was now besieged. The winery fund lawsuit demanded a $2 million buyout. The Von Hausen creditors were suing him for breach of promise, and he had staggering legal debts. He was financially crippled. Professionally, he was finished. No law firm in the city would touch him. The gala had seen to that. He was a pariah, a laughingstock, a cautionary tale whispered about in boardrooms and at cocktail parties. It was a Thursday afternoon when the final blow landed. I was leaving my office building, the sky clear, hard blue. He was waiting by the entrance to the underground parking garage, leaning against the concrete wall like a specter. He looked worse than he had at the gala dinner, his eyes hollow, his expensive suit hanging loosely on his frame. He reeked of despair and cheap whiskey. Raven, he croaked, stepping into my path. My security detail, a new and necessary expense, moved forward slightly. I held up a hand. It's fine. I stopped. A good 10 feet between us. What do you want, Liam? The court has spoken. We have nothing left to say to each other. Please, he said, and the word was a broken thing. Please, you have to call off the dogs. The winery fund, they're going to force a sale at a fire sale price. The Von Hausen banks, they're threatening criminal charges in Austria for fraud. My mother, she won't even take my calls. Serafina left. She took what was left in the apartment and left. I have nothing. Raven, nothing. I looked at him, this man who had once been my husband. I felt nothing, not a flicker of pity. You have your trust fund. Liam, once you pay me what you owe and settle your other debts, there might be something left. Maybe you can get a job. Have you tried retail? A grotesque parody of a smile twisted his lips. A job, right. He took a stumbling step closer. My security guard tensed. You've destroyed me. You've taken everything. Was it worth it? Was your revenge worth destroying a man's entire life? You did that, I said, my voice low and precise. You made your choices, Liam, every single one of them. The affair, the lies, the wedding. You chose to listen to your mother. You chose to betray me. You chose to commit fraud. Now live with it. The only thing you ever brought to this table was audacity. And now, even that's gone. You're just a debtor. The finality of it, the utter contempt in my voice. broke the last of whatever was holding him up. His face crumpled, not in anger, but in a hopeless, bottomless anguish. And then, in the middle of the concrete driveway, with my security guard and a passing courier looking on, Liam Blackwell sank to his knees. "Please, Raven," he sobbed, tears cutting tracks through the grime on his face. He was begging, literally begging. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was weak. I was stupid. I never loved her. It was all a terrible mistake. Please, just stop. I'll do anything. I'll sign anything. Just let me breathe. Please, for what we had. For 8 years. Please." I looked down at him, this broken man kneeling on the dirty concrete. This was the moment I had imagined in the white-hot fury after seeing the wedding video. The moment of absolute victory. It tasted like ash. "Get up, Liam," I said, my voice devoid of all emotion. "You're embarrassing yourself. The time for apologies is long past. The time for consequences is now. Enjoy the life you chose with Serafina." "Oh, wait." I let the cruel pause hang in the air. "She left you, too. It seems you're not a very good investment for anyone." I stepped around him, not looking back. My security guard opened the door to my car. As I slid into the leather seat, I caught one last glimpse of him in the rearview mirror, still on his knees, head in his hands, his body shaking with silent sobs. The car pulled away, merging into the city traffic. The cold, hard, not a vengeance in my chest, the one that had fueled me for weeks, began to loosen, to dissolve. It wasn't replaced by warmth or happiness. It was replaced by a vast, quiet emptiness and the clear, unshakable knowledge that it was over. He was gone, not just from my life, but from any life that resembled the one he'd thrown away. The financial ruin was complete. The man was destroyed. I had won. Now, I had to figure out what to do in a world where Raven Silva, betrayed wife, was no longer the role I had to play. Serafina von Hausen's press conference was a masterstroke. She didn't do it in a sterile lawyer's office or a crowded courthouse. She chose a small, tasteful art gallery in Vienna, a nod to her family's former patronage, dressed in a simple, elegant black dress that screamed remorse and resolve. Not the extravagant wedding gown of a month prior. She faced a small but global cluster of cameras. I watched the live stream in my study, a glass of ice water in my hand. Revenge, it turned out, was best served cold. But watching your former rival hand deliver the final blow to your enemies was a close second. "My name is Serafina von Hausen," she began, her English crisp, her accent lending her words a grave, authoritative weight. "1 month ago, I entered into a marriage with Liam Blackwell under profoundly false pretenses. I was led to believe, by his mother, Eleanor Blackwell, and by my own family's desperate circumstances, that this was a union of mutual respect and shared futures. I was told his previous marriage was effectively over, an amicable separation. I was told his former wife was aware and supportive of his moving on. All of this was a lie." She paused, looking directly into the camera, her blue eyes clear and steady. "I have since learned the truth. Liam Blackwell deceived his wife, Raven Silva, fabricating a medical crisis to travel to Switzerland, where he married me, a stranger, in a secret ceremony. I was an unwitting participant in a fraud. I have provided all evidence in my possession. Emails, recordings, financial agreements, to Ms. Silva's legal team and to the relevant authorities. I am seeking an annulment of this marriage, which was based on deception from its inception." A reporter shouted a question. "Frau von Hausen, are you implying the Blackwell family bought you?" Serafina's chin lifted. "I am implying they attempted to. My family is in debt. The Blackwells offered financial salvation in exchange for a title and the social legitimacy they craved. I was the currency. I believed. Foolishly, in the fairy tale they sold, I see now it was a transaction, and I was a commodity. I deeply regret the pain this has caused Ms. Silva, who was the primary victim of this scheme. I am here today to publicly apologize to her and to set the record straight. Eleanor Blackwell orchestrated this. Liam Blackwell executed it, and I was a pawn. No longer. The video clip went viral. Broken Baroness exposes Blackwell wedding scam. Socialite heiress claims she was bought in bizarre marriage plot. Eleanor's name, once whispered with reverence in certain circles, was now a byword for Machiavellian social climbing. Liam's was a punchline. Serafina, in a stunning twist, emerged as a sympathetic figure that a young woman used by her own family and cunningly manipulated by an older, ruthless one. She was getting her annulment, and with the evidence she'd provided, it would be swift. Eleanor's response was not surrender, but a final, scorching tantrum. She didn't email this time. She called. From a new number. I answered. Curious. You. Her voice was a venomous hiss, stripped of all its usual genteel pretension. You vicious, conniving gutter snipe. Do you have any idea what you've done? That little slut, Serafina, that ingrate, parroting your lies. You've turned her against her own family, against my family. I leaned back in my chair. Hello, Eleanor. Recovering well. I see. The Swiss air must be very clarifying. Don't you dare be glib with me. You've destroyed my son's life. You've destroyed our name. For what? Because you couldn't keep a man? Because you weren't good enough? The old insults. Now so pathetic. I didn't destroy anything. Eleanor, you did. You tried to trade your son for a title and a veneer of class you've never actually possessed. You failed, spectacularly, and now the whole world knows the Blackwell legacy is just a cheap forgery. She was breathing heavily, a faint wheeze on the line. I'll sue you for defamation. I'll sue that little gold-digging tramp, Serafina. I'll bury you both in lawsuits until your last dime is gone. You're welcome to try, I said, my voice calm, but your legal fund is currently tied up paying my legal fees, remember? And defending against the Von Hausen creditors and the winery fund suit. I'd save your pennies. Eleanor, you might need them. Respectability is expensive, and you've just declared bankruptcy. There was a long silence. When she spoke again, the fury was still there, but it was edged with something else to the desperate, chilling realization. He never loved you. You know, he stayed with you out of pity. And for your money, I told him to. Keep the clever one with the funds close. I said, she's useful. You were always just a tool, a means to an end. The words were meant to eviscerate. Instead, they landed with a dull, confirming thud. They were the final, ugly truth I'd already deduced. But hearing them from the architect herself was perversely liberating. It confirmed every cold calculation I'd made. I know, I said, and the simple admission seemed to suck the air from her sails. And you were a mediocre strategist. Eleanor, you overplayed your hand. You got greedy. You thought you could have the new money and the old name, and you could just discard the person who earned the money. That was your mistake. I was never just a tool. I was the forge. And you, and your weak, pathetic son, walked right into the fire. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a company to run. A real one. Don't call this number again. I hung up. I blocked the number. Then I called David. Eleanor just threatened to sue for defamation. I want to preempt it. File a suit against her. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Tortious interference with my marriage. I don't care if it sticks. I want the discovery. I want her under oath. I want every dirty secret of the Blackwell trust dragged into the light. David let out a low chuckle. Consider it done. The threat of that alone will probably make her drop any action. She can't afford the discovery, not with what we already have from Serafina. He was right. faced with the prospect of a lawsuit where her emails, her financials, and her personal life would be subpoenaed and dissected, Eleanor folded. Her lawyer did a different one from Liam's. A sign of their fractured alliance, contacted David to explore a mutual cessation of hostilities. The price, Eleanor's formal, written, and public apology, and her agreement to never contact me or speak of me publicly again. In exchange, I would drop the suit. I had David send the drafted apology. It was a thing of beauty, forced and humiliating. I, Eleanor Blackwell, wish to express my deep regret for the pain caused to Raven Silva by my actions and those of my son, Liam. The events surrounding his marriage in Switzerland were the result of poor judgment and miscommunication on my part. I apologize unreservedly for any distress caused. IT was a milquetoast, lawyer-sanitized version of the truth, but it was a surrender. She signed it. We released it. The headlines were brief and merciless. Blackwell matriarch apologizes in wedding scandal. It was the final nail in her social coffin. A week later, I sat across from Liam in a neutral conference room in David Chen's offices. It was the final signing, the divorce decree, the financial settlement orders. Everything. He looked like a ghost of the man I'd married. Thinner, aged a decade in a month. His eyes dead. He was accompanied by Bill Garner, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. The signing was silent, mechanical, pen scratched on paper. When it was done, David notarized the documents. The marriage that had begun with a rushed City Hall ceremony 8 years ago ended with the sterile click of a notary stamp. Garner gathered his copies and left with a muttered farewell. Liam remained seated, staring at the polished table. "It's done, Liam," I said, standing. "You're free to go." He looked up at me, and the deadness in his eyes was momentarily replaced by a flicker of that old, impotent rage. "You've destroyed me," he said, his voice a hollow rasp. "You've taken everything. The money, the name. My mother won't speak to me. Serafina, you turned her into a weapon. I have nothing. You heartless bitch." I didn't sit back down. I stood at the head of the table, looking down at him. The power dynamic was now a physical fact. "No, Liam," I said, my voice quiet and utterly final. "You did that all by yourself. I just made sure there was no one there to clean up the mess." I picked up my copy of the divorce decree. "Enjoy the life you chose with Serafina." Oh, wait. I let the cruel, now familiar pause hang. I saw him flinch, anticipating the blow. "She left you, too. It seems nobody wants the product of your mother's ambition. Not even your mother." I turned and walked to the door. My hand was on the polished brass handle when his voice stopped me. Not with a shout, but with a broken whisper. "Was any of it real? For 8 years, was any of it real for you?" I didn't turn around. I thought of the early years, the long talks, the shared dreams that had curdled into mutual toleration. I thought of the man I'd believed he was, a fiction I'd helped maintain. The answer was complicated, but he deserved none of that complexity. "The prenup was real," I said, and opened the door. "And so is this." I walked out, leaving him in the silent, empty room with the ruins of the life he'd chosen. David fell into step beside me in the hallway. "Clean, efficient. It's over, is it?" I asked, not really needing an answer. "Legally, financially, socially, yes. He's a non-entity. He'll likely move to some cheap corner of Europe, live off the scraps of his trust once the debts are settled, and drink himself into an early, quiet oblivion. Eleanor will retreat to her compound in Connecticut and pretend none of this ever happened. Serafina will get her annulment, write a memoir, and become a minor celebrity advocating for women duped by wealthy families. And you?" He stopped at the elevator. "You get to be Raven Silva again, whoever that is now." The elevator doors slid open. I stepped inside. The doors closed, cutting off the view of the plush hallway, the legal battlefield now behind me. The descent was smooth and silent. I was alone. The vast, quiet emptiness I'd felt after the parking garage returned. But it was different now. It wasn't just the absence of him, or of the fight. It was space, unclaimed, unplanned, terrifying, exhilarating space. The war was over. I had won. Every objective had been met. Every enemy vanquished. Now came the hard part, figuring out what to build in the peace. A year to the day after I'd seen the damning video on Tiffany's Instagram feed, I stood backstage at the Moscone Center, listening to the muffled roar of 3,000 people. The screen of my phone glowed with a notification for a calendar reminder I'd set long ago. Today, keynote, Tech Fusion Summit, 10 a.m. A different notification. An email sat beneath it. The sender, Forbes, the subject. Final approval, cover feature. 5 minutes. Ms. Silva, a young, harried production assistant whispered, clutching a clipboard to her chest. I nodded, not looking up from my phone. I opened the email. Attached was the final proof of the magazine cover. A stunning, high-contrast photograph of me, standing on the balcony of my new Pacific Heights penthouse. The Bay Bridge arcing through the night behind me. The headline, in bold, white type, Raven Silva, the venture capitalist who built a kingdom from the ashes. The subhead, how she turned a personal betrayal into a $500 million fund focused on women-led tech. A slow, genuine smile touched my lips. It wasn't a smile of gloating. It was the smile of a strategist seeing a long game play out exactly as projected. Chloe, leaning against a stack of speaker cases beside me, saw my expression. The cover? She asked. The cover. I confirmed, showing her the screen. She grinned. A fierce, proud thing. Damn right. You ready to go out there and own the room? Again? I'm ready to talk about the Synapse 2 fund's performance and our new investment thesis in climate tech AI. I said, slipping the phone into my pocket. Anything else is just background noise. The stage manager gave the signal. I walked out into the blinding light and the wall of sound. The applause was different now. A year ago, it would have been polite, acknowledging the wife of or the successful woman in a man's world. Today, it was thunderous, respectful, eager. I was the main event. I stood at the podium, the silent, confident center of the storm. I didn't need notes. A year ago, I began, my voice calm and clear in the perfect acoustics. My personal life exploded in a very public, very predictable fireball of male audacity and poor planning. A ripple of knowing laughter moved through the audience. The story was legend now, a modern-day parable, and in the ashes of that particular configuration, I found something interesting. Clarity. I spoke for 30 minutes about resilience, about pattern recognition that in algorithms and in human behavior, about the staggering, untapped potential of founders who weren't trying to emulate a bro culture playbook. I announced the first close of my new fund, the Ethelflaed Capital, that a name chosen for the Saxon queen who built fortresses and defeated invaders. The crowd loved it. The questions afterward were sharp, professional, focused on EBITDA and market saturation, not on my divorce. This was my kingdom now, not a gilded cage in a quiet neighborhood, but this, the stage, the fund, the unassailable authority that came from surviving a siege and emerging stronger. Afterwards, in the green room, Chloe handed me a glass of champagne. Nailed it. As usual, the Ethelflaed name is a killer touch. Subtle, but everyone gets it. How's the other matter? I asked, taking a sip. The other matter was our code for the final. Lingering threads. Wrapped. Liam officially moved to a one-bedroom flat in Bratislava last month. Don't ask me why Bratislava. I think it was the cheapest city with a direct flight from Zurich that wasn't actively on fire. He's working as a legal consultant for a firm that mostly deals with EU agricultural subsidies. It's a pity hire from an old college friend. Eleanor is essentially under house arrest in Greenwich. surrounded by hired companions because all her real friends dropped her after the apology letter. The Blackwell Trust is a shambles, tied up in perpetual litigation with the Austrians. They're not destitute, but the faucet is down to a drip. And Serafina, Chloe's smile turned wicked. Just signed a six-figure book deal. Title, Pawn to Queen. I nodded. Justice, of a sort. Not the fiery, dramatic kind, but the slow, erosive kind that grinds a false life into dust. It was enough. My personal phone buzzed in my clutch. I rarely carried it anymore, but today was an exception. I pulled it out, a text from an unknown number, a plus 421 Slovakian country code. Unknown, Raven. I know you don't want to hear from me. I don't know why I'm writing this. I'm sitting in a bar in Bratislava looking at the rain. It's over. All of it. Mother is a ghost. My life is a joke everyone has already heard. I think about that chapel in Wengen every day. Not her. You. I think about the look on your face when I left. I thought you were being needy. I was such a fool. I was weak. I was everything you ever despised, and I was too blind to see it. I destroyed the best thing I ever had for a fantasy my mother sold me. There's no point to this. I'm just so sorry. A hollow, useless word. I'm sorry. For all of it. I hope you're happy. I hope you've built something beautiful from the wreckage I made. You deserved so much better than me. Liam. I read the message once. Then again. The self-pity was thick. The attempt at poetic regret almost nauseating. He was still performing, even in his destruction, casting himself as the tragic hero of his own downfall. A year ago, this might have sparked rage, or a cold, slicing retort. Now, it sparked nothing, not even contempt. It was just data, noise. I didn't read it a third time. I didn't dissect it for hidden pleas or manipulation. I simply selected the message, tapped delete, then tapped block this caller. The final, insignificant, loose thread, snipped. Him, Chloe asked, watching my face. A ghost, I said, putting the phone away, trying to haunt an empty house. That night, we celebrated, not at some stuffy, members-only club, but at a vibrant, noisy new restaurant in the Mission that one of my first female founders had just opened. My team was there. Onya, David Chin, Marcus Thorne, who, in a shocking turn, was now sharing appetizers with Chloe, and a handful of the brilliant, fierce women whose company's Ethelflade was backing. The air buzzed with ideas and laughter, the clink of glasses, the sound of futures being built. At the head of the long table, Chloe stood, raising her glass. The conversation died down. A year ago, she said, her voice carrying, a friend of mine had her world set on fire by a coward and a schemer. A lot of people would have just burned. They would have taken the settlement, licked their wounds, and gotten smaller. She looked at me, her eyes shining. Not this one. She didn't just put the fire out. She took the ashes, used them for fuel, and built a goddamn fortress. Then she opened the gates and started building kingdoms for the rest of us. So, a toast to Raven, the queen who rebuilt her own castle, and then became the bank for every other queen with a blueprint. The cheer was deafening. Glasses touched all around me. I stood, touched by Chloe's words, but more by the sea of faces looking at me, not with pity or curiosity, but with respect, camaraderie, and shared ambition. Thank you, Chloe, I said, my voice steady. I looked around the table. But the toast isn't to me. It's to clarity. It's to recognizing a bad investment early and having the guts to cut your losses. It's to reinvesting your energy into something that actually generates a return. In life and in business, I raised my glass higher to better deals, to smarter investments, and to building something that can't be taken away by anyone's weakness but your own. Here, here, the shout echoed through the restaurant. Later, as the party began to wind down, I stepped outside for a moment of quiet. The San Francisco night was cool, the sky clear, the city stretched out before me. A circuit board of lights and endless possibility. I thought of the lonely, silent house I'd stood in a year ago, listening to the echo of a slammed door. I thought of the cold fury, the meticulous planning, the glorious, public unmasking. The victory had been sweet, necessary, but this noise behind me, this city before me, this quiet certainty within me, this was better. The vengeance of the crow wasn't just in the attack, it was in the intelligence, the patience, and the absolute refusal to be anyone's prey. Liam, Eleanor, the whole gilded fiction of that old life, they were a closed chapter, a case study in failure. I was no longer the woman who had been betrayed. I was the architect of what came next. The castle was built. The kingdom was secure. And the future, for the first time in a very long time, was entirely, thrillingly my own. I turned and walked back into the light and the noise, a smile on my face that held no ghosts, only the clear, bright promise of tomorrow.